welcome to the Twilight European Network, and we're here this morning. We're honoured to have the Minister for European Affairs, Mr. Tomas Byrne. Thank you for joining us, Thomas.
No problem, Martin. Delighted to be here.
And Thomas, what we've been doing in these sequence of recordings is we've been asking the person behind the title just to give us a wee background on your good self.
Well, thanks very much, and thanks for having me on. I'm Tomas Byrne. I'm currently Minister for European Affairs. I'm very honoured to be that, and grateful to the Taoiseach. But I've been in the Oireachtas almost unbroken since 2007. So it's in the Dáil from 07 to 11. I was in the Shannon 11 to 16, and I'm in the Dáil since 16. So I've had a range of experience in politics, but I was a solicitor before that, and I worked in European law, in fact, in one of the law firms in Dublin. I'm married to Anne, and we have 3 kids between the ages of, nearly forgetting now, but the youngest is nearly 11. And my eldest just turned 14, so the 3 of them very close together.
Very good. So your background then even would kind of tie over nicely into when they were putting together these programs for the migrants. And then in 2015 to 2019, we committed to bringing over 4,000. And how do we do on those figures?
Well, yeah, that was the target. The figure to date under that programme is 3,367. So yeah, we didn't quite meet the target, but I think it's still a very good result. There's a lot of challenges there, and we're very conscious of our obligations to the wider world and to our EU and UN colleagues as well in terms of what we committed to. But I think we have done that. We came very close, and we will. There are still individuals to arrive in the country from that programme. And obviously that reflects a difficult period in recent times when there were very, very large migrant flows in Europe, and a mechanism was put up to address that, and we're still working on it actually. So I'm very hopeful that we will meet that particular target. But there are still well over 3,000 people here in Ireland as a direct result of that programme, and in general, I would say doing very well, and what we hope ultimately is for complete integration into the country as far as that's possible.
Yeah, and then we'll say then from now on to 2023, we hope to have approximately another 3,000. But obviously COVID and then incidents around the world, like in Afghanistan, must affect your ideas and your planning when you're doing something like that. Yeah,
COVID affects it. The target was 650 in 2020, 700, 21, 750, 22, and 800 then in 23. No country's going to solve all this on their own, but we're going to do our best. And despite COVID, the Gardaí and the Irish Refugee Protection Programme were over in Lebanon and Jordan selecting refugees, and they have been in the process of selecting about 500 refugees. 260 have arrived, or will arrive, I should say, by the end of the year. So I think despite COVID, we are still making progress there. Quite frankly, we have to.
Yeah, and I think in a previous conversation as well, we mentioned that climate change is going to be a big issue.
There are so many causes of migration. I think in Ireland, we have a very welcome focus on the human rights of migrants when they're here, when they arrive in Ireland. Housing, health, education opportunities, employment opportunities. That's a real focus of Irish public debate at the moment. It's very welcome. But I think sometimes we need to focus on the other issues that cause migration, whether it's climate, as you mentioned, whether it's security, war, or whether it's food and water, which are inextricably linked to both climate and to war and security. So we've got to, just keep active. So many challenges and so many changes happening in this as well. We saw Afghanistan this year, but climate is definitely, I think, the biggest issue. So somebody doesn't have water because of climate change, and there's so many examples. They have to move. There's no question about that. So it's in everybody's interest that we get to grips with the climate challenge. Yes, we want to make sure that we become carbon neutral for ourselves because we have to play our role. But actually, if we can do this, we can, save the planet basically and save the countries of many of these migrants from what would be the wreck of climate change. If we don't do it, we're already way behind. We have the opportunity now in the next few years to change the temperature rise, to stop it, and to become completely carbon neutral. And that will have a direct impact, I believe, on migrant flows throughout the world.
Yeah, now, the Twilight Community Group here in Kilkenny, we work an awful lot right across all the different communities, new communities, but also the European communities. But one of the things that came out during the CICAP report in March is that depending on the nationality, some had a very poor level of education, not even up to second level education here in Ireland. That's going to be a barrier to employment. We ourselves run courses here for a number of people, but have we things in place that can help alleviate that problem?
Yeah, that's obviously a key issue. And what I should say in terms of migrant children, there would be no barriers to them attending second level education. So it's important, I suppose, to be clear about that. But obviously, adults arriving without necessary education is undoubtedly a barrier to the labour market. And quite frankly, we need people in our labour market here in Ireland to protect our own food supply and security and to promote our economy. Now, there is one government initiative, I'm not directly involved with myself, it's the Open Doors Initiative, but it works with industry, government and NGOs to support employment opportunities for specified groups such as refugees, asylum seekers and young people. And what that does is sort of leads them into training, work experience, mentoring, and then into employment. And these are people with difficult backgrounds in some cases, lack of educational opportunities, but the helping hand is there of the government working with NGOs to ensure that they can be ready for the labour market, because quite frankly, no one coming to Ireland that doesn't want to work, in my experience.
Yeah, they're here to work. And actually, on the education thing, one of our programmes, we'll be talking to a young South Sudanese gentleman who is now studying for his master's, so it just shows that there is a pathway there for, And now, direct provision is always kind of a bit of a thorny subject when we talk about it. And even in Twilight Group, we kind of promoting the idea of a international culture house where the local community benefit from it as well, that they get their library, they get their internet cafe and whatever. And I know it was a temporary solution. Have we things in train at the moment that will be replacing it?
Well, I come from an area where there's a direct provision centre, and while we want to change direct provision and replace it completely, actually, I'm glad to say that there are no community tensions, no tensions between the existing community and the community in the refugee centre. I think that's the first thing I welcome, because sometimes when these centres are open, that's the first thing. Oh, how will our services cope? How will all of this? How will we get on together? And everything. In my experience, there has been no real difficulties at all in terms of integration, and that's not. Yeah. Any comment on the centre itself, because we have a government commitment to replace direct provision, and that's a very clear government commitment. Minister Cohen published a white paper on this. There's money going in from the budget. What we want to do is make sure that we're operating international best practice, and we will actually be one of the best in the EU when this is put into place. There's working groups now between the Department of Housing, the Housing Agency, local authorities working on this. It's not going to happen immediately, because we can't just close down all of our accommodation centres at the moment and expect that all of a sudden there's better provision there. We have obligations to house and to ensure people are kept to a certain standard under our international obligations. So direct provision will be there for a little while, but the absolute government commitment is to replace it, and the government is working to implement that commitment to replace direct provision.
That's great news. And also, just it's kind of always one of these questions that can create a little bit of unease, but there is always some people who will come and say, you'll see it on social media, let's look after our own. I mean, you get that. We get it when we're talking to people, and I wonder what's your kind of response to it when you hear people saying things like that?
Yeah, funny enough, now I don't hear it as much as maybe we probably used to. And I'm just giving the example of my own local area. Like, I mean, there has been, perhaps someone said that when it opened more than 20 years ago, but don't hear it now. Like, there used to be a lot of myths around as well about free prams and free cars and all this sort of stuff. Just nonsense around. But the reality is that the people who are coming to Ireland and seeking international protection, who are refugees, they're coming from a vastly worse position than anybody in this country. And really, there's nobody can argue seriously with that point. So I think that we have to remember that we have obligations under the Geneva Convention. We have to accept applicants for international protection. We have to give them, and it is basic facilities, and give them their rights under international law. It's as simple as that. And there is no question of it doesn't even arise that we would look after our own, because we do look after our own. We do. It's a simple fact. The Irish people have a much higher standard of living than anybody coming from any war-torn or any place from which they're seeking asylum. So yeah, I have to say it's not something I've heard as much in recent years. I'll be honest now.
That's great to hear, because actually we recently ran a European program in BHAT, and we had a number of Irish people that went over to it. And one of the things they all said when they came back was the reality of seeing a refugee camp than what is being portrayed in the media is completely different. So I think that's what really kind of reiterates what you're saying there. Now, there is a 9 million commitment from the EU. Is that really enough?
Well,
it's not a lot. It's not a large sum of money when you in the overall.
No, it's not. Like, resettlement is an international responsibility to share, to share responsibilities. And this is just a tangible expression of international solidarity. It may not be, it may not seem to be sufficient, but I think that we are actually working with our EU partners, and we're a relatively small country. We're at the far end of any possible migrant flows. But I really do think that we are playing a role in that, and we're very, very central to the debate, and we have given resources and given commitments on this. But what we're looking for really, and I hope this could happen sometime during the next year, is for the EU to come together on a common migration package. Now, Ireland is still examining many of the measures, and there have been no commitments given on individual ones. It's a national competence really at the moment. But I think there is huge scope for the EU to do a huge amount more, but that will require the countries all coming together to agree this. That is certainly something that's possible, I would say, in the second half of next year, just in looking at the political cycle in various countries. And we'll see what extra benefits that brings.
Thomas, if, Minister, you were given an opportunity to put your own paragraph in one of these programs or these protocols or even the law, is there any particular thing with regard to the resettlement program that you'd like to see in it? And it can't be changed. It's your paragraph and nobody will be able to change it. Is there anything you'd love to see in it?
Well, I think my emphasis would always be on education, education opportunities. And you mentioned that already, because I think it's something we can offer, something we do really, really well. And I think it really helps the individual migrant coming, but it helps society as well. I mean, society functions better if everybody's well educated. We can't have a situation where we accept a huge amount of migrants and they're kind of the least educated in the country. It's simply never going to work. There'll be huge problems with integration, huge problems with separation. Education to me is the ultimate integrator. It's the ultimate bringing people together, basically. And I think that's important, to give people those opportunities. And so much else flows from that. A lot of our communities in Ireland are rooted around schools. So if we have schools there, if we can bring adults into the conversation, if we get adults educated as well, just bring more people into the Irish system, the Irish psyche, the Irish society. And I think that's what I would be putting my emphasis on in all of this.
Thomas, it's been a pleasure talking to you this morning, and I thank you for your time. And you're always welcome to come and visit us here in the International Cultural House, Twilight International Cultural House here in Kilkenny, and we'd love to show you some of the activities that we're doing. Minister, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you very much for our viewers as well for looking into that interview with Mr. Thomas Byrne, the Minister for European Affairs, and we look forward to you joining us again in the near future. Thank you very much and goodbye.